Should the U.S. commit forces to defend Taiwan? Authoritarianism, puppets, I don't know, man.
Y'all, AOC so wild, man, that we have to start with a cartoon. That's how bad this went. When foreign policy turns into animation, you know something slipped. I'm just saying. Authoritarianism, puppets. This is Taiwan, not trivia night. Nobody expects perfection, but if you're on the world stage talking about troops, you can't sound like you just woke up. The crazy part, the parody wasn't even an exaggeration, if you ask me. It just had some more color and contrast. Once that clip hit the internet, it was over. I want you to watch how this, keeps building, because then we went from war to cowboys. Yes, cowboys.
So AOC was attempting to make fun of Secretary Marco Rubio for his remarks at the Munich Security Conference, where he said that American cowboy culture owes a portion of its roots back to Spain. And AOC said, Spain? Why don't you ask Mexicans? Real quick, Alexandria, I don't know if you know who introduced horses to Mexico, but I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with your last name. So
Rubio says cowboy culture traces back to Spain. AOC laughs, says, eggs, Mexicans. But here's the problem. I did some research today. Spain colonized Mexico. Spain brought the horses. Spain brought ranching. And then Mexico made it theirs. Both can be true. This isn't politics, y'all. It's just history, right? You don't get offended at gravity. You just accept it. When you mock something basic, it sticks. And the internet loves basic. But it doesn't stop there. Now we zoom in.
You are starting to see the ascent of the right, even in places like Munich. Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word.
AOC is clueless. It really seems, unless it's about taxing the rich and stealing people's money from them, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Cowboys did originate from Spain. Why do you think they speak Spanish in Mexico? I know, crazy, I know. Also, the Spanish reintroduced horses to the Americas. A lot of people don't know that. They reintroduced horses here in the 15th and 16th centuries. Horses had gone extinct here thousands of years before that. So now let's talk about cowboys in Spain. Medieval Spain had mounted cattle herders called vaqueros. Yo hablo un poco español, pero necesito practicar más. Ooh, tell me how it was if you speak Spanish. I think it was decent, but I don't know, let me know. But in Spain, they had vaqueros, and they developed, the core skills, roping, branding, herding on horseback. When Spain colonized the Americas, they brought cattle, horses, and vaquero culture to America, to Mexico. Now, Mexican vaqueros refined that style, spurs, wide brim hats, etc. And this is where you could argue most of the cowboy culture was born, but it all originated out of Spain. So when she's up here making fun of Marco Rubio, she's actually just showing the world how ignorant she is and how he was right when he said it. But again, if it's not about taxing the rich and redistributing wealth, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And even those ideas are terrible ideas. But it is astounding to me that people take her serious. And that Democrats were like, yeah, AOC. AOC doesn't know what she's talking about. She does not need to be in any federal government position. But again, Democrats don't really care about putting competent people in place. That's very clear. So yes, instead of trying to poke fun and make fun of Marco Rubio, she needs to go sit down and be quiet. Because all she's really doing is showing, hey, I really don't know much about history. I'm pretty ignorant, but I'm going to get up here and talk like I know something. Crazy work. On my newsletter, we currently have over 195,000 subscribers that get it sent out to them every morning. My next goal is 200,000. So I send you just about 4 to 5 quick topics every morning about things that happened the day before. So it's a good way to stay up to date with what's going on and just kind of keep a pulse on things. The link to that's in my profile. So just click that link, drop your email in, hit subscribe and you'll be good to go. I hope to see you
Definitely.
there.
Now, Rubio was actually giving credit to Hispanic roots in America. That's what makes this funny. He wasn't erasing anybody. He was including people. And still, somehow that turned into ignorance. Sometimes politics is just confidence mixed with bad timing. Now, let's talk about that moolah. Let's talk about that money, because this one changed the room. Theory meets reality.
So when you run for president, are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
You have the recipe that many Latin American countries applied many times. That is some relief in the short term, but end up being, a tragedy for the future. It's like public expenditure, huge public expenditure, price control, sometimes wealth tax, and you end up. The wealth goes away, and you have just the tax, and you don't have wealth anymore. That was something that Peronism did many times. So all these recipes then creates a cycle, no? Then you have this short-term relief, but then goes with inflation, shortage. Then you have more poverty, and this and the cycle goes and goes.
Y'all caught that, right? She said, you end up with just the tax and no wealth. That line was cold. Not dramatic. When they ain't too loud, it was calm. And calm is harder, I'm just saying. Wealth tax sounds good in the speech. But when someone from a country that tried it says, we actually did that. We did that. Yeah, it's going to land a little differently. You can argue policy all day, but lived experiences, as I said, that's harder to clap over. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Even media voices starting, shifting. Because when Cuomo, I don't know how you say this man's name. I've been saying his name wrong forever. Cuomo. When he says something like this, I just say it matters.
AOC has done nothing meaningful in Congress. She's done it all on social media. And she's one of your leading names in who's going to be president. Do you not get this concept of 80-20? She's an 80-20 loser all day long. Why? She is clearly catering to a minority. She's her own version of MAGA. She's looking for an outraged enclave. She's not about the majority. She's not about consensus. She's not about solutions. She wants government to give you everything. She's a socialist in a capitalist society. What are you thinking? AOC has done
80-20 loser. My boy said that's not partisan. That right there is some math. If you only speak to the loud 20%, you lose the quiet 80. Presidents don't win with loud rooms. I'm just saying they win with ride ones. Munich showed something. It showed applause energy, but did it show middle America energy? That's the real question. Now let's look at the long speech, because delivery is everything, y'all. Let's check it out.
I'll start last to first. I think this is a moment where we are seeing our presidential administration tear apart the transatlantic partnership, rip up every democratic norm, and really calling into question, as was mentioned by David Carney at the World Economic Forum, the rules-based order that we have, or question mark, do we have? And so I think one of the reasons why, not just myself, but many of our colleagues here, in fact, many Democrats that are here as well, is because we want to tell a larger story, that what is happening is indeed very grave. And we are in a new era, domestically and globally. There have been many leaders who've said we will go back. And I think we have to recognize that we are in a new day and in a new time. But that does not mean that the majority of Americans are ready to walk away from a rules-based order
and that we're ready to walk away from our commitment to democracy. I think what we identify is that in a rules-based order, hypocrisy is vulnerability. And so I think what we are seeking is a return to a rules-based order that eliminates the hypocrisies around when too often in the West we'd look the other way for inconvenient populations to act out these paradoxes, whether it is, kidnapping a foreign head of state, whether it is threatening our allies to colonize Greenland, whether it is looking the other way in a genocide. Hypocrisies are vulnerabilities, and they threaten democracies globally. And so I think many of us are here to say, we are here and we are ready for the next chapter.
Yeah, there's real ideas in there. Inequality, working class, global power. That's fine. But your sentences are longer than the runway. And people are, they going, boop. Munich is tight, direct, clear. When you circle the point too long, it feels unsure. Fair or not, that's just how it plays. In politics, it's how it plays. Now culture enters into the ring. Because this stopped being about policy. It became about identity.
Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain. It's also important to note how thin that foundation is.
Everybody, it's Bishop Barron. Just last week, Marco Rubio gave a talk that I thought was really good in Munich. He was talking about the shared culture of Europe and America. He referenced Gothic cathedrals and Dante and Shakespeare and even the Beatles. His point was, we got to get beyond just our political differences and find our sources in the great culture that unites us. And then he took a further step that was very much in line with Pope Benedict XVI and Christopher Dawson, namely that culture is grounded in cult. At the root of all culture is something like religion. And so he wasn't afraid to reference the Christian faith as a key element in giving rise to the shared culture of Europe and America. So a really good speech, I thought. Well, then I think it was yesterday, I saw Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez answering him. And I was very struck by her answer. I thought it was very illuminating. She said, this appeal to culture, it's so thin because culture is ephemeral. It's always changing. And so we shouldn't pay attention to culture. We just pay attention to the material foundations in the class struggle. Well, all of that, everybody, is right out of the Marxist playbook. First of all, that Western culture, as Rubio invoked it, is thin. The culture that gave us all those great figures, that gave us the rule of law, that gave us respect for the rights of the individual, that gave us our democratic political system, that gave us the university system, that's thin. And your argument is, well, because cultures always change. Well, that's a banality. I mean, of course, cultures are alive, they change and evolve. Doesn't mean for a second we can't identify the key elements within a culture that gives it its character. But also this, to characterize culture as thin is a Marxist move. Marx said that culture is simply an epiphenomenal superstructure on top of the economic substructure. And don't be distracted, therefore, by the culture. That's just protecting the economics at bottom. Well, again, listen to her. Let's pay attention to the material conditions and to class struggle. Again, that's the Marxist playbook. What's worrying me, everybody, is the extent to which political leadership on the left in America is becoming, it's unapologetically Marxist. The mayor of New York City, the warmth of collectivism. He's calling for the confiscation of private property, of seizing the means of production. All language right out of the Communist Manifesto. Might I encourage followers of, Mayor Mamdani and AOC, talk to some of them. They're still alive, some of them. The people that fled Marxist tyranny in Europe. People laboring under it to this day in Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, etc. And then this too. It concerns me not just as someone who follows politics, but as a bishop of the Catholic Church. Marx himself said the first critique is a critique of religion, and his political adepts followed him. the first thing that the Marxist tyrannies went after in most cases was religion. I'm getting a little concerned that in some of these leading figures in our own politics, a Marxist philosophy is taking hold. As a religious leader, this is concerning me quite a bit. Take a look, everybody. Attend to the language. In a way, they're telling us who they are and what they're for. And I think that should be very concerning to everybody. God bless you.
When someone says Western culture is thin, that hits people different. Rule of law, rights, universities. People don't see that as thin. They see it as a foundation. Agree or disagree, that's emotional ground. And once emotion gets involved, it spreads. Now, the final wave, because you knew Trump was going to speak on it. You knew it now. We got the video version. Last time we only had the audio.
By the way, I watched AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman. But I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much. And they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City is got some problems.
Not a good look. Trump knows the optics. He doesn't even have to overtalk it. Just say it looks bad. Let the internet do the rest. And then the side-by-side hit. Contrast is undefeated.
Party. Look, this Munich Security Conference put on full blast the fact that we've only got one adult political party in the United States right now, and it's the Republican Party. Marco Rubio gave the speech of a lifetime over there. He laid out a clear foreign policy vision that defends Western values and Western civilization. And the brightest Democrat over there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, crapped the bed, okay? She wants to be president, she wants to run, and she's one of the most popular Democrats and gave one of the most embarrassing performances you could possibly do. Gretchen Whitmer, one of the governors that Bakari is touting, said she knows even less about foreign policy than AOC, and Gavin Newsom has repeatedly embarrassed himself every time he's gone to one of these international conferences, whether it was Davos a few weeks ago or Munich. He can't even rebuild a single house in the Palisades in Los Angeles. In California, people are running out of there like crazy right now. The bottom line is this. These international conferences have been a disaster for Dems, and they have showed Republicans, in the name of Marco Rubio this time around, to be adults who have a clear-eyed view of what the United States has to do in the future.
Yeah. Rubio, applause, tight lines, clear message. AOC, pauses, running circles, mixed reactions. That visual sticks. You can debate substance all night, but politics is image plus timing. Munich wasn't just a speech. It felt like a preview, right? And if 2028 is even a thought, moments like that matter early. So y'all saw all these clips. Was this internet exaggeration? Or was this a real leadership gap? If you made it to the end of this video, though, I want you to comment the word stage. Yep. Nah, not even for the algorithm, y'all. This is for me. Y'all be safe. Go check out somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Peace.